Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, students. How are you today? I hope all of you are fine. Oh yeah, yesterday I heard some of you were late to school. Is that right? Why were you late to school? There are many reasons, yeah. And then, did you get punishment from your teacher? What punishment did you get? What? Clean the bathroom? I'm sorry to hear that. Oh, do you think it's a good experience or bad experience? Yes, of course it's a bad experience. So, will you repeat it in the future? Of course not. Good. So, promise to yourself that you will not do the same thing in the future. You will not come late to school again. Yeah? Okay, today I would like to share a story about experiences of someone. And by the end of this lesson, I hope we can learn something about kind of text and also be wise to face a problem in our life. Okay, listen to my story. The clothes shop assistant, Mr. Kuchiko, was unhappy. He broke his leg last week, and at the moment he was staying in hospital. He could not move anymore. Of course, he could not work either. Then he was thinking to the things that happened last week. Last week, on Monday, Mr. Kuchiko's boss was not happy for his work. He said Mr. Kuchiko wrote a lot of rubbish to him. He was very angry. Mr. Kuchiko was sad either. He knew why he did the work horrible. That was because Mr. Kuchiko helped his neighbor, Mrs. Polo, to make her light. He went to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning. This made Mr. Kuchiko feel sleepy all the day. So he did his work very terrible. On Tuesday, Mr. Kuchiko went to a restaurant to meet a big boss of a company. The big boss called Mrs. Lily. She always cut on Mr. Kuchiko's speaking. This made Mr. Kuchiko very unhappy. At last, Mrs. Lily put a cup of cold coffee onto Mr. Kuchiko. Poor Mr. Kuchiko. On Wednesday, Mr. Kuchiko's son, Peter, fought with a student at school. The student was hurt and went to the hospital with his mom. His mom was angry and asked Mr. Kuchiko's son said sorry to her son and gave them $200 for medical expenses. Oh my God, shouted Mr. Kuchiko. On Thursday, Mr. Kuchiko lost his purse. $1,050 flew away from Mr. Kuchiko. Finally, he found back his purse in a bookshelf of a library. But there were nothing in his purse except his ID. What a big trick! On Friday, he broke his leg. Ha 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 ha, Mr. Kuchiko laughed with a forced smile. Okay, students, that's the story. I think, do you understand the story about? Okay, let's discuss. Yeah, go deeper to the story. Who is the main participant in the story? Yes, come on, who is? Okay, good. That is Mr. Kuchiko. And then, what happened to him? What happened to Mr. Kuchiko? Yes, good. He broke his leg. Then, from what paragraph do you know the answer of question number 1 and number 2? Yes, from what paragraph? Okay, that's very good. Paragraph 1. Okay, next. Have a look, paragraph 1. The clothes shop assistant, Mr. Kuchiko, was unhappy. He broke his leg last week, and at the moment he was staying in hospital. So, from this paragraph, you know the information about Mr. Kuchiko, and then what happened to Mr. Kuchiko, and then where he was. Yeah, we call it orientation of the story. What is orientation of the story? Orientation set the participant, place, and time. Jadi orientation menerangkan participant adalah orangnya, tempat, dan waktu. We can find it in the first paragraph. Okay, the next. What do you know? Do you know what happened to Mr. Kuchiko before he broke his leg? Anyone knows? Yeah. There are many things happen. Ada banyak hal yang terjadi. What were they? Yes, what were they? They were? Okay, have a look. The first, on Monday, Mr. Kuchiko boss was not happy for his work. Mr. Kuchiko boss was very angry. Yeah, why? Because Mr. Kuchiko did the work terribly. Yeah, because he did his work very terribly. So we can call it, this is event 1. Okay, the next. On Tuesday, Mr. Kuchiko went to a restaurant, and then he met Mrs. Lily, and Mrs. Lily put a cup of cold coffee onto Mr. Kuchiko. This is also a bad experience. So we call it, this is event 2. Okay, and the next. On Wednesday, Mr. Kuchiko's son, Peter, fought with a student at school. And finally, Mr. Kuchiko have to give $200 for medical expenses. It's also a bad experience, right? Yes, we call it event 3. And the next. On Thursday, Mr. Kuchiko lost his purse. There were nothing in his purse except his ID. Okay, we call it event 4. Okay, the next. On Friday, he broke his leg. That made him to stay in hospital. Okay, we call it event 5. Okay, student? Are you clear? Now here, after orientation, there is list of event. List of event is a sequence event. So event arranged accordingly. Ya, peristiwa-peristiwanya terjadi secara berurutan, sequence event. Okay, the last paragraph here. Ha 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 ha. Mr. Kuchiko laughed with a forced smile. what we call it? We call it reorientation of the story. So, what is reorientation? Reorientation is the closing of the story. It can be an opinion of the story. Okay, student? Are you clear? Okay, next, let's discuss the question. Number 1. Where was Mr. Kuchiko when he was tracking back his past few days? Anyone knows? Yes, the answer is in a hospital. Number 2. What made Mr. Kuchiko work terribly on last Monday? Come on, who knows? Yes, that's very good. He slept very late the night before. Yeah, good. Next, the last. What happened to Mr. Kuchiko on the 3rd day of his horrible week? He spent some money to pay for his son's friend's medical expenses. Okay, students, now we come to summary, what we learned for today. The text that we learned today is called Recount Text. Yeah, okay. It tells about someone's experiences in the past. Someone's experiences can be good experience or sometimes bad experience. But what we learned today is about bad experience. Maybe next time we study about good experience. Yeah. Okay. The next, the generic structure of recount text that we studied today is first orientation. Orientation, set of participant, place and time. And next, number 2 is list of event, is sequence event. And the last, reorientation is the closing, usually state the opinion of the writer. Okay, students, for the next meeting, we will discuss about the language features of recount text. So, prepare yourself well by reading many references. You can browse from internet, or if you have old book from your older sister or brother, you can study at home. Yeah. Okay. Bye-bye. Thanks for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.